Fighters from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant continue to make advances after seizing the city of Mosul and bringing Iraq to the brink of civil war. I'm here with Richard Fenning, Chief Executive of Control Risks, a risk consultancy. Richard, are we witnessing the disintegration of Iraq?
Not yet, but we're getting close to the point at which that becomes a real possibility. I think what we're effectively got now, we've got the same conditions in that part of northwest Iraq that exist in Syria. We've essentially got the conditions of a civil war.
How difficult or how easy would it be for ISIS to actually make inroads into Baghdad itself?
I think it would be very difficult. It's not impossible, but it would be very difficult for ISIS to take Baghdad in the same way that they've taken Mosul. So I don't think that's necessarily going to happen and not necessarily the most likely scenario.
But why is that?
Because they would be attacking a much more heavily defended city with troops that were defending the heartland of the government. I think it would overstretch them, despite the gains they've made. I think it would overstretch them to try and do that. Doesn't mean to say they can't really destabilize Baghdad and make Baghdad a much more difficult place to operate in, but for now I think a full-scale assault on the city is not that likely, but not impossible.
Today, the news is that Kurdish fighters have taken Kirkuk. Now, the Kurds did not intervene to stop ISIS going into Mosul or to kick them out, but they have rushed to protect Kirkuk. Can you explain that?
The Peshmerga, the defense force of the Kurdish region, is going to defend Kurdish territory, and in this case, by extension, Kirkuk, extremely robustly against any attempt by ISIS to move into the kind of autonomous region of Kurdistan in northern Iraq. No doubt there are all sorts of rumors and motivations about what is happening politically in Iraq, but I think one thing is absolutely for sure, that for ISIS to try and make serious inroads into Kurdistan would be met with the sternest of resistance by the Kurdish forces.
How worried should oil markets be, and how worried should oil companies be?
I think they can still afford to take a balanced view. So much of the oil production from Iraq comes from the south, comes from the Shia-dominated south in and around Basra. Their operations continue not quite as normal, but pretty much as normal. It would be very difficult for ISIS or its affiliates to make any real inroads. They do not have, in any shape or form, the consent of the community in the southern part of Iraq. So I think for now, oil markets have to they have to be extraordinarily alert to what is happening. But given the sort of geographical nature of where Iraq's oil is, I think they've got to continue to take the long view. And also I think for Kurdistan, as you mentioned, it's got an extremely difficult period for the Kurdish region, but I don't think we should make the assumption because Anbar and Nineveh have fallen that those provinces controlled by the Kurdish region are under the same kind of threat.
What about the pipelines?
Pipelines are always vulnerable. They were vulnerable before any of this happened, and they will continue to be so. Certainly those in the north, and certainly those outside of the Kurdish-controlled region in the north will continue to be extremely vulnerable. In the south, much less so.
Obviously, all of Iraq's neighbors, the US government, all Western governments are extremely concerned about what's going on in Iraq. Should they be trying to do something to stop this?
They should, and I've no doubt they are. What they will not do, I'm talking about the US and European governments, is that they will not intervene militarily. I think we are a long way from that even being considered. For kind of the history of the last 10 years suggests that there is nothing that is going to persuade America to go back into Iraq.
But what can they do then?
Well, what they can do is that there is other forms of intervention alongside Iraq's neighbors. So this is a major concern to Turkey. It's also of extraordinary concern to Iran. And one's got to see this in the context of the talks that are going on between the United States and Iran over a potential deal about Iran's nuclear ambitions. The potential upside from all of that is that the US and Iran find common ground in trying to curtail what is happening in Syria and now, by extension, what is happening in northwest Iraq. And the best hope for an international intervention to draw what is happening to a close is for the United States, Iran, Turkey, and the other regional powers to find common cause to intervene. But it will not take the form, certainly at the moment, of troops on the ground to support the Iraqi forces. It will take both diplomatic and in terms of additional military resources, but it won't be human at this stage.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.